one? Good.
It's 7 o'clock, call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Here. 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 Yep.
Need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion to approve it.
You, there's
And
no
who-
amendment
We got
to
it.
tables.
We've got an adjustment on the bills.
Oh, okay. We got an amendment to the approval of the bills. We have a total of $72,372.41. $72,372.41. And payables, $15,917.99. Okay, with those adjustments, I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Support by Lovelace. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, motion is carried. And a motion to approve the minutes of our December 12th meeting.
I'll support it.
Then moved and supported. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, motion is carried. Public comment. We have Ann McKinnon and Marcia Gillard here from the East Oregon Health Clinic, and they would like to talk with us. Your floor.
Good evening, I'm Marcia Gibbard. I just I'll make a quick comment and I'm gonna let Dane take over because he knows more of the statistics than I do. I did receive a letter from the Village of Central Lake and I appreciate you reaching out to us. And I apologize for not responding to it sooner. Unfortunately, the letter got put in my box at the health center. I don't go there every day to check it. I didn't check it till later in November, and we normally have our board meeting the first Thursday of every month. Well, in December, there's a conflict with some of our community activities, so we didn't actually meet until the second Thursday of the month. So by the time I got the letter in my hands, a lot had transpired since then. I'm like, oh, wow, we need to address this. So we addressed it at the board meeting, and at that point decided, the whole board, that we would find out when your next village meeting would be, and we would come here to hear your concerns and hopefully give you a little bit of information as to where we stand.
Okay, great. It's a busy time of year. So
It is.
That's okay, we understand that.
I'm Dane McKinnon. Worked with the health center now for about 26 years. Remember coming over here when Dr. Arnold was still, when he was first talking about selling his practice, and a few days after we met with him to talk about buying it, the next thing we heard was Dr. McKinnon and his wife had been over to talk about buying the practice, and so I'm not a doctor, and Dee was with me. She's not my wife, but I say that because I know how things can get reported and then told, and then it becomes this anyhow. In fact, I was talking to somebody today, and they had heard that Dr. Haber was coming back. And I said, well, yes, actually, she did come back for about 10 days over the holidays. It wasn't to come back to work here, though. So, Gene Haber worked for us for 10 years. Before Gene and Ryan worked here, Dr. Webb worked for us as well. So, what I can say is in my 26 years of working for the health center, healthcare has changed a lot. And what we're finding is it's harder and harder for us to recruit doctors that want to work in rural Michigan and rural medicine. We were really fortunate. Jean Haber liked working here in Central Lake. She liked working by herself and didn't necessarily want to be part of the group, even though she was part of the group that actually works in all three of our sites, Bel Air, East Jordan, and Central Lake. So she had the support of that. She shared call with them. She was part of the group, but she got to kind of do her own thing over here in Central Lake. So we've been working with Merritt Hawkins, which is a national recruiting firm. We've had a contract with them now for 4 years, I think, to help us recruit 2 doctors. They haven't produced anybody yet for us. We have had some come. Dr. Hebert came and worked for a couple of years in Bel Air. He was retiring. He retired from the VA, and then he wanted to retire again, and then he lived in Petoskey, and we had some retire out of East Jordan, and we called Dr. Hebert and said, you know, we know your license is still good. Could you give us a few months? And again, that's what we've been faced with as we've worked not only with challenge of getting doctors, we also have nurse practitioners and physician assistants as well. And nurse practitioners, physician assistants collaborate with the physicians. So we really are working on developing a team of physician with a PA and an NP that works with them so that they can extend the practice and create more access. Again, we're working on getting somebody. We just had a new doctor start in East Jordan, April North. In the short term, we had Arminda Meza. You may have met her or heard of her. She worked for us actually she started in East Jordan, then she lives in Traverse City, so she worked for us in Bel Air. She ended up leaving on maternity leave. Ended up after she had her baby, then she came back for a couple weeks, went off. When Dr. Hebert left for a second time, we had her come back for a few months in East Jordan. She just now has had her second baby. So I mean, I tell you all this because the challenge to recruit is unbelievable, and as part of a federally qualified health center, we work with other health centers throughout the state and the country. When I go to meetings, I hear the same thing from everybody. What are we doing about doctors? If you read the news, the shortage is real. It's only going to get worse. I don't know what we're going to do long term. That being said, we have not, as a board or an organization, had made any decisions as far as closing the center here in Central Lake. What I can tell you is we looked at the numbers, and we use a lot of stuff as we apply at grants to get this. We use federal dollars to help us support the health centers. So we look at a lot of statistics, and we know that in Central Lake Township in 2015 there were 2,415 people. We had 1,172 of those people that lived in that zip code accessing health care at one of our sites. Now, it could be they could have gone to one or all 3 of those, but so about half of the people that live in the zip code are using our center for care. We drill it down to, as we were looking at what are we going to do with Gene Haber leaving, we sent out a letter to inform, we sent out 770 letters to people, and those were the people that had seen her in the 15 months prior to July 31st. So when we ran that report, it was anybody that's seen her 15, and it was probably, actually, we ran the letter probably in June, so it was, we had 770 people that had actually seen her over that 15 month period. We go 3 months beyond a year because sometimes they haven't, most people maybe once a year, some are every month, but we try to make sure anybody who'd seen her recently and within over a year, a little over a year, got notified that she was leaving and asked that they either go to our Bel Air or East Jordan site. So of those 770 patients, now of those 770, I went through that, and 360 actually live in the zip code. Some of them were coming from Boyne City or Michigan here a long time, and so people that seen her may have moved, but they still liked seeing her. So 360 of those people lived in the zip code. On December 7th, when we were reviewing this, 183 of those patients had actually been seen by somebody else, either in Bel Air or East Jordan. 23 of them had been seen in East Jordan. 160 had been seen in Bel Air, which makes sense because that's the closest site, and most of them probably go there for other things anyhow. That leaves us with 177 that haven't been seen yet. Now, they may have gone somewhere else, Boyne, Elk Rapids, Traverse, Charlevoix. Maybe they went to Florida for the winter. I mean, I don't know. We were going to try to drill down even further to see what we can do about that. But for the sake of tonight's meeting, I think we just wanted to let you know we're well aware of the needs here. We also, and I think you even referenced in your letter, we know that one of the things that's unique about health centers is, you know, we've always talked about the value of a health center to a community. They weren't just created to create access to health care. The reason the federal government gives money to health centers is to, one, have health care, but it also creates an economic engine. If you pay people to work in the community, it turns over, and it creates jobs, it creates business. So we're well aware of that too. So we certainly, we don't know what the future holds though. I'll tell you, if we had it, our wish would, we have a doctor who's probably going to sign a contract. He lives in Bel Air. He's gone for a few months though. Retired and kind of, I mean, that's what we're getting now, is a lot of them are retiring north, and they aren't quite ready to retire, but they can work part-time or seasonal. That's not what you want if you're the person that needs it. We also have a candidate who's a resident out of Munson's program right now that we're hoping that she would stay in the area. What we find is if you can train them in the area, they'll stay in the area. We know when Central started their new medical school, we worked with them to start bringing medical students or residents into the clinics to teach them. But you got to have doctors to have medical students, and we don't have the capacity to bring students right now because we're short-staffed at every one of our sites. We serve, between the three sites, we serve about 10,000 people in a year. We last year provided about 26,000 office visits, which is down. We used to provide about 36,000 office visits. So it's challenged us financially, and we also know that a lot of it has to do with whether we can have the doctors on staff. So I don't know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. Or try to.
I appreciate the fact that you have come to see us tonight and explain the situation. I think we're all aware of the fact that it is a challenge for you. What we were most interested in hearing is that you haven't forgot about us. Because of those challenges, you could easily just say, we'll shut the door and not come back. And that's what we don't want to see happen. So if you could keep working, and hopefully somewhere down the road we can replace the one that is left, we would greatly appreciate it. So,
Well, one thing I will say, and I was not really very pleased when I seen the letter or the article in the newspaper,
yeah,
but I know Linda's job is to sell papers, not to provide health care. I don't know if she's here or not, but I've told her this myself. What I will say is, doctors that are looking to go to a rural area to work, they Google the town. First thing they do is Google. And they want to see, is this a place I want to be? And so you Google it, you'll see the article. That doctor candidate would know the concerns you've expressed. And so again, that's the, that if they're going to work here, they're going to be part of the community. I mean, generally we've had good doctors who stay. I mean, I remember Dr. Carey worked for us for 35 years. That's where he started and retired from us. Many have stayed a long time, but healthcare is changing. I mean, the hospitals, with the way that reimbursement's working, the hospitals are hiring every doctor they can get their hands on. So we're competing with them. We're doing our best. The salaries are going sky high. If you know anything about shortages of, if you're supply and demand, if you're in high demand, you can name your price and
again, I appreciate the fact that you've come to see us, and I think we all understand the challenges, so we certainly didn't want to stir up a hornet's nest by this getting into the paper.
No.
Once we do something, we can have no control.
That's right.
And our goal is, we don't want to put, a doctor, and open the office back up, put a doctor in there just so that doctor can leave 6 months later, then we're back in the same boat. I mean, we want to get somebody that's going to be, like Dr. Haber, be here for at least 10 years. We try to provide comprehensive care as a team approach at our clinics, and for us to pull a doc from one of our other clinics that's tearing down our team approach that we're trying to develop there. So I know it's not easier for the patients to go to one of the other clinics, but we're going to be able to provide them better comprehensive care at one of the other clinics right now with not having a full team here. So.
I would probably even be able to say Dr. Haber worked for us part-time, and after she had her second child, she wanted even less time. If you're the person who wants to get care, you want them to be there Monday through Friday, for God's sakes, 8 to 5. What day are they open? Oh my God. And I imagine if I walked through town or sat and had coffee with people, they'd say, yeah, I went there once, but man, I could never figure out if you're going to be open or not. And I'll tell you what, 15 years ago, Sheboygan Hospital operated a clinic in Pellston. And they closed that clinic. Sheboygan was going through what they were going through, and they just built a brand new facility up there, and Sheboygan Hospital had a 5-year lease on that facility. It was beautiful. They called me and said, can you get an FQHC going up here in Pellston? I went up and met with people. We actually brought our state association director and the CEO from Sheboygan Hospital. We talked about the clinic there, and I knew one of the guys that was very upset that there was not going to be a clinic there. They said, we'll give you the space under you pay 80%, each year you can pay more. And I said, wait, I looked at the numbers that they had. They shared all that. I said, they're about the same size as Central Lake. And I said, here's what you got to understand. Most of the people that live in Pellston were going to Sheboygan or Petoskey, but they wanted a doctor in Pellston. And I said, you got to commit to using it if it's there. You can't go and get your physical in Charlevoix or Petoskey or elsewhere and want a doctor here in case you cut yourself, or, I mean, you gotta use it if it's there. So I say that not to threaten anything, I say that because, and again, I also recognize that if you're the patient, you wanna see the doctor that you establish a trusting relationship. That's the most important thing of all. So you gotta, but I encourage you, if we get somebody, you know, you wanna use them for your care and it's family practice, and, you know, I don't wanna lecture, I don't wanna do any of that to you. I wanna just, again, we're doing our best, and I think, you know, we've had a couple of candidates that I would say I would never put in this community or in one of ours, because they're disruptive. Doctors are, you gotta have the right fit, especially in rural medicine, because, you know, a lot of them wanna be in a hospital setting or right next door to a hospital, so that, I mean, that model is, the hospitals support it. They have access to all the specialty care. When you're out here in the sticks, as we are, we gotta rely on a lot of EMTs and everybody else to make sure that we have everything we need, so.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Police report, Scott?
Thank you. Hopefully everybody got a chance to look through, I have two reports, which is typical this time of year. We'll go through the December one first. Pretty typical month, shows everything down the left-hand column there. Some training involved. We still have the citation that we wrote this summer is still kind of pending. That just keeps getting moved and moved and moved. So hopefully it's got a date here in a couple of weeks if it doesn't get postponed again. So I'll keep you posted on that. Window night went really well, and keeping involved in school. So any questions on December?
Active shooter planning, who was that with?
That was it was training out of, I can't even think of the names. It was with the schools, and there was one in Travers, one in Petoskey, one in Gaylord, and then one in Alpena. So I went to the one in Gaylord. The school sent a couple people, 3 people from the school also went. So it's kind of more of a comprehensive teamwork approach as far as, you know, setting up plans and, you know, all that stuff. So.
Anybody else have anything?
Okay, so no questions on December. The other report you have is the year-end report. Not more information there. If you get some chance, just look through it over. If you have any questions, you can give me a call. Pretty typical of, you know, a year-end report, things that we've done, and obviously the miles that we work, part-time people work, and stuff like that. So
I thought the year-end report was very interesting when I looked it over, just to compare things from year to year.
a lot of things stayed consistent, but there's a lot of things that change too. So it's kind of a good variety. You know, I always get that question as people ask, "Oh, what do you do in Northern Michigan?" You know, compared to like Detroit or something like that. I mean, you know, we definitely keep busy, but it's not the kind of things that you would see in a big city, obviously. So I think this year we did a lot of ordinance stuff. I mean, you'll see a lot of ordinance issues.
Thanks for doing that. I thought
Well,
very-
Rachel helps out too. Every time I do a monthly report, she gets it, logs it in the computer, and then she gives me a spreadsheet at the end of the year. So, and I've done it before in the past. It's horrible. I mean, it takes me about a complete day to spread out 12 months on my desk and to, you know, go down item by item, then add all 12, then go to the next item, add all 12, then go to the next item, and, you know, it becomes very cumbersome. But she came up with the idea of putting it on a spreadsheet, and it kind of kicks itself back out relatively easy. So.
Anybody have anything for Scott?
Thank you.
Thank you. Sam?
Well, everybody should have a copy of the DPW report. You'll kind of notice, I write down, I call in streetlights to Consumers Power. I don't know if anybody's noticed or not, but Last 6 I have called in, they're LED lights they put on now. So consumers is slowly but surely starting to switch over. Larry had a new one just put in front of his house
I noticed that.
yesterday, I believe.
I can see it from my house.
It's certainly a whiter light than the other one.
Yes, it is, yes, it is. It's nice in the winter, but when there's not a white background, it's pretty, I don't think I like it as well much.
There's little amber ones that makes them look like they're
Yeah.
burnt out.
Yep. Repaired the 3/4 ton pickup, that was my truck, that's, we put wheel bearings in it, hub bearings actually, rotors, brakes, blah, blah, blah. We worked on, Old State Road, what we did, we had to go out and find property markers in case we do go ahead and do the road paving bid, so we have found the majority of the property markers. Keep in mind, I'm not a surveyor, I'm using my wand to find the property markers that I believe are property markers. You guys all have a copy of that bid. In that bid, the only thing it is short is about $12,000 for a fire hydrant removal, setback 10 feet off the road with a new hydrant set. There's 5 dead maple trees out that way that have to get took down. And then 6 maple stumps that have to be dug out if we were to do that project. Mike Elwinger told me, don't pay us to do that, it's gonna cost you a fortune. Hire somebody local. So Buckman's, Ralph, and Tri-County have all given me an estimate on what the cost would be. That's where that $12,000 additional comes in at. Outside of that, just plowing snow and the new truck's in, and boy do we love it. We had to put all new LED lights on it because they take all the lights off it when we get it. And I don't know if anybody noticed, but we sand down the center of the road now. We no longer throw it on both sides, we put it right down the middle. And Brian signed the bill on salt sand, and the price of salt sand has gone sky high. Just so everybody knows it.
It's working well.
We budgeted,
That's right.
we budget $6,000 for salt sand, and this, so far the last 6 weeks, the bills come to $3,900. That's how much salt sand's went up. So you may want to consider budgeting a few more dollars within the winter maintenance for salt sand, 1920. Any questions?
This bid from Wraith Riley, did a copy of this go to the township?
Not yet, I just received that, Brian.
Just got it.
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
I emailed Rachel, she printed it off so everybody had a copy of it. Yep. I figured that's the boss's job. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Correspondence. The county administration office sent us a letter to say that they have positions open for committee assignments in the county. The Housing Committee has one, Veterans Affairs has one, Antrim Creek Natural Area has one. If anybody's interested, there's the information here, we'll get it to you. The USDA has made available approximately $200 million for grants that would enhance Wi-Fi access to rural areas. I'm pretty sure as a village we would not be eligible because from my understanding, Charter, who furnishes our Wi-Fi in the village, can put in as high speed of service as anybody is willing to pay for. So I think it has more to do, or it would be more prudent to forward this on to the township and see if they have any interest, because I know they can't provide those same services throughout. So the MML Capital Conference is March 19th and 20th at Lansing. Anybody interested, let me know. I have yet to decide if I'll go this year or not.
What is that?
The Capital Conference, MML Conference is March 19th and 20th in Lansing. And DTE is asking the Public Service Commission to change some inspection procedures. That meeting is January 28th in Lansing, if anybody is interested. There's also a Michigan Rural Community Demolition Grant that is being offered. I'm not sure we have anything in the village that would require that, but the information's here if somebody wants to pursue it. And that's all the correspondence I have. Committee reports, Lyle?
Nothing I got is on new business. Sam's got bid that from Glory Fraser on the bridge repair. We can address that in new business.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Sewer and water, Leila?
No, nothing at this time.
Law enforcement, Bill?
I think Scott pretty well covered it. I'd like to ask Chief if he'll come up here for a second.
Are you gonna mention it?
Just go up there.
Turn around this week.
In recognition of Law Enforcement Appreciation Week, the board would like you to have a little token of our appreciation, and it's from Lyle's wife.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are you gonna mention the resignation?
Yes, you.
Yes.
You want me
Okay,
to?
thank you.
I can do it. I'll do it. That it? For you?
That's it, thanks.
Matt, communication?
Got nothing to report.
Brian, finance personnel?
As Sam said, the November, December salt and sand, we go down to the road commission garage and get it, which has been very helpful. We used $3,168.87, 59.5 yards, so that's working out to about $60 a yard. Sam says that Bert Thompson, which I believe, said that that is their cost for salt sand. So I don't see any reason that we ever, as of now, need to talk about putting in our own storage structure. There was an article in the paper a couple months ago in the interim review that salt sand was going to go up 30% this year because of demand, so now the price is reflecting that. We got another check from MDOT Act 51 for another $7,400. So that should be probably the last check that we're going to get. I talked to Rachel yesterday. I have to talk to her a little bit more about her maternity leave. She's been in discussions with Carol about how much Carol can work and how much time, Rachel doesn't know right now how much time she's going to have to take off, but we'll be talking about that more next month, and that's all I have.
Tyler?
Find your campground and public property committee meeting minutes, please. Looks like that. You can share mine, Lyle. It's stapled and it's got a schematic of the campground.
It's right now, yeah.
All right, last Friday we had a campground meeting. Brian was there, Matt, and I talked to Lyle via the phone. We looked over the campground rules. We're proposing to remove rule number 1, and rule number 1 states site must be tidy so lawn mowing can be done. That's subjective. It doesn't do anything, and I'd rather pull a rule out because I'd like to add a new rule. Well, actually, Lyle and I were And the rule we want to add is only one RV/trailer and one tent no larger than 10 by 10 per site. The problem we're having is that people are coming up here with the larger trailers, putting large tents on the site, and the tents are so large that they can only gain access to those tents by going through somebody else's site, unzipping their tent and going into the tent. Also, we've had people put multiple tents on these sites. And I have received 2 complaints from campers regarding that. So I went down there several times and witnessed it myself, and it's becoming a problem. I talked to Brian about it, and Barnes Park apparently has a rule about tents. You want to elaborate on that?
What Barnes Park does is they charge you per unit. If you have a trailer there, not a 3-man dome tent, they'll allow that, but if you have a trailer plus a 8-person tent, they charge you $30 for each one that's there. We'll see how it goes this year, but what the problem that we have is we don't have the size sites that Barnes Park has. The trailers are getting so big that when somebody pulls in a 36-foot trailer, that takes up the whole site. So we got to try to limit the tent size somehow for this season to see how it's going to work.
So that's the first 2 modifications we have to the rules. And then number 2 on your page there, if you turn your attention to the schematic that I stapled to it, you can see the campground. And above each numbered site, I've got the % occupancy rate. If you turn your attention to site 20 and 22, they're stacked on top of each other. They have occupancy rate of 24%, both of them. What the schematic isn't really showing is that those are 2 very shallow sites. Those internal camping sites start narrow and get larger as you move north. So essentially what's happening is if we do get a trailer on 22 and 20, they're touching one another. And since the occupancy rate is so low on those already, we feel that by switching it to one pull-through, eliminating one of the sites, you might have higher occupancy rate because it's an easier pull-through and it's a larger site. And we might get more bookings and make a little bit more money on those sites. That's the next thing. Thoughts on that?
Sounds like a good idea.
All right.
I've forgotten what size are those lots?
20 and 22?
Well, all of them basically are about the same up there.
Golly. Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, 20 and 22 is only, 30 by 30 maybe. It's a square. They're tiny.
Yeah.
And then as you get towards the creek to the north, they get wider. And I don't know how it was ever laid out that way, but it's not a true square grid like they're showing on this.
Why is 18 so popular?
I don't know. It's that guy that's always there every year. And he likes to be right there by the boat launch because he fishes quite a bit. And he pulls his boat right to the side there.
It's 25 and 17, looks like we got the
Same problem. Well, here, good question. So what Lyle's referring to is site 17 and 25. As of right now, I don't think we should do anything with that, just because if we put one large pull-through in there, we could have a really large camper on there and would ruin the aesthetics for everybody on either side. Whereas right now, site 21 is a pull-through, so we'd have 2 pull-throughs, and then the rest would be the traditional size lots. I don't think it'd be fair to the campers on both sides of 17 and 25 if this huge camper pulled through, blocked the sun from sites 26 and 16, and that's essentially what could happen. So that was our rationale on that one.
Site number 18 is the guy from Ancelona that comes and he stays pretty much from day one to the end.
Yep.
Yeah. He has to move a couple times, but he likes
good.
that site.
Glad he likes it.
He's coming back next year, this year.
Further discussion items. The new docks are in, installing the signage information, informing the public that there's no overnight mooring. We've got to put something up there so you don't have people parking their boats there all season. Because we've got the 5 new docks there, so that's essentially we could have at a minimum 20 boats there, but we want to make sure that people understand that it's not for overnight mooring. Number 2, naming of the new permanent docks. We were just brainstorming, let's see, Boyne Mountain, the city of Boyne, they call it the Shoppers Dock. Maybe we could call it downtown docking, so that way when people pull in there, they know that this parking is for people going up to the town and walking around and visiting the establishments in the town. That's what I would like to see, so that way we're promoting the downtown from these docks. Just more discussion items. 3, and I talked to Scott about number 3 here, enforcement on no overnight mooring. What happens if we have somebody overnight there? Or if it's multiple nights, how do we want to handle that? Or should we just let it go and see what happens? And that's where we're at on that one. Which brings me to the enforcement here, because for example, if you look at Site 18, that individual that's there 84% of the summer has got a fishing boat with a trolling motor. He likes to keep his boat in the water, and he likes to go over to the permanent docks and plug his trolling motor battery into that power outlet there. I mean, he can't be there overnight, so we can allow him to park it there for the day. Does he have to move it? There's some logistical things that we're going to have to address here. If you look at site number 14, he's there 73% of the summer. He parks his red pontoon boat into the mucky area right where there were no docks, which is the boardwalk. There were no docks there. Now there is. We're going to have some growing pains here, and I think we better be aware of it and have some things in place so that way we're not caught on that one. Number 4, Gordy Frazier talked about installing wayfinding signage maps on the dock and directing the public to the downtown businesses. Who's funding that? Should it be the business owners? Do we make a sign and every business owner will sign a letter, and then on the side we have a slide up that says, you know, Bachman's, and then if Bachman's changes their name, we can just slide out the little name tablet and slide in a new name. That's what we have to think about too. And again, funding for it. Is Gordy Frazier doing it? Are we going to put money towards it now to get this thing going? I'd like to have it in place by springtime. Number 5 is little pie in the sky. Brian and I were talking about that. Adding 3 to 4 electric-only pull-through sites on the top of the hill south of Site 36. So again, if you go back to your schematic that I stapled to your page, you can see that I circled where we have room to put some electric-only sites in. I've got the permit from the health department. Sam informed me that if we do add sites, there's going to be a cost accrued with that. Will it change? How much? I don't know. I'd like to start looking into it, see how much it would cost for ARC Electric to put in a bid, to put 30 or 50 amp service in up there, and how many we could do. It's not something we're going to do this year, but if we could start getting bids and start looking at it, another way to generate revenue, since the other sites are popular, we could probably recoup our money in a short amount of time on that. Again, I'll look into the health department and the permit, how these 3 or 4 extra sites would affect our permit. And that's it for me. Questions?
Is that where you have the boat trailer storage now?
That would be, yeah. And the boat trailer storage, ever since we put those signs up that says for camper use only, we haven't had the number of trailers. You told that one, and the word got out quick. I mean, it was amazing. July 4th weekend, there were not boat trailers parked sideways along Herrick Road there. So it's working. And then the last thing, let's see, Lyle Lovelace was kind enough to make us a plaque for our new tree that the other one was vandalized. This tree donated by Porcupine Hollow Farm and Northern Tree. Lyle at Woodmasters made this for us free of charge. Lyle, stand up, I'd like to get a picture, come on, stand. Rachel, do you have your phone, can you take a picture? I have my phone, thank you, Lyle. Thank you, gotta stand. There you go, take a picture. What's wrong, Mike? Make sure you get the Woodmaster logo. We'll do it later. But again, thank you, Lyle. He did it out of the goodness of his heart. Hopefully, we can put a 4x4 post on that and get it installed in the spring.
Joe, with that said, when you talk, keep me in the loop with Dory Fraser and the signage.
Okay.
And find out if it's wood or if it's a metal, what type of sign that she's looking at. Because
I don't know what we're looking at. That's the whole thing. We've talked, we've discussed. We've got to start moving forward. We're kind of stuck here. We want to get a name, a nice sign.
Because if it's a wood sign, it's, that's kind of what I do, so.
Sure.
Maybe it's something that we could, maybe we'll get a better deal on.
Yeah. But again, we've got to start thinking about that.
Just keep me in the loop.
Definitely.
We were talking about putting some new trees in down there. Are you doing anything about that yet?
Tree, yeah, they've already got them in there. That was what,
I haven't been down there this year, so I
the
don't
tree
know.
grant, we put some in already.
Okay.
Yep.
I had a quick question.
Yep.
Is there any opportunity to get some revenue from overnight mooring? Can we?
Overnight
set aside
mooring
some space?
this year paid for itself. That's all it did. It paid for installation and removal. That's all it did. We made, I think it was $500 and it cost us $500 to remove them. If we put another section of White Docks on the south side, we could possibly generate more revenue that way. There's another thing we should probably discuss too. I didn't even think about that. Thank you. What he's talking about is south of the boat launch, we put in 3 sections of White Dock accommodating 2 boats, and it was really popular. Maybe this year we could put another section south of that, but again, it was kind of mucky, and we kind of did it quickly to see what would happen. We can look into it.
Are you referring to the docks, the new docks that were just put in?
Actually, I was talking about the new docks that we're putting on
And
the
we
white
can't,
ones.
we can't
Can't
use
do
those,
that.
can we, because they were grant money.
Grant one, okay, all right. But the white ones sound like a potential.
The white ones, definitely.
Sherry, did you have a question?
I had a statement on the signage for downtown. Paddle Antrim should be approaching you because they are working on signage for the water trail. And they wanted to put up a sign for the downtown businesses. So Paddle Antrim would pay for those.
All right.
That it, Rob?
That's it.
I only have 2 things under my report. The Health Department of Northwest Michigan is seeking grant proposals, which we have submitted one to expand our sidewalk project that we sought grants for last year. We received $15,000 last year for roughly a $50,000 project, so we're seeking another, whatever we can get from these folks to hopefully go towards that. Woody Frazier's and Jennifer are helping us with that. So the only other item I have is that our deputy police officer, Don Stead, has resigned. So I would think we would replace him at some point in the future, and the law enforcement committee will have to get together and figure out the needs, what we have to do to proceed to replace him. And that's all that I have, unless there's any questions from you. Okay, we'll move on to the approval of the bills. We have prepaids of $49,611.39, payroll of $6,843.03, payables of $50,917.99, for a total of $72,372.41. Need a motion to approve to pay the bills.
I'll support.
Been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Chapman?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Lovelace?
Yes.
Patton?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, new business. Kelly Young, you are here. I'll give you the floor and
Thank you, thank you.
I know I didn't submit this. This is for your just review. I know it needs to be turned in typically before. The purpose for me coming tonight was I want, you all know me a million times, almost, you know me anyways. And since I stepped away from the family business a year and a half ago, I kind of want to let you guys know, like, what I've been doing, what I've been up to, and kind of how I stumbled across this. So, a year and a half ago, as I was looking at leaving the family business, a friend of mine was passionate about cannabis, and I've been a medical patient since it's been legal, and it helped keep me off of opiates for my own medical reasons. Through my research of the industry, I realized that one of the things that I could do to be kind of a responsible steward coming into the industry was taking mobile extraction out to cultivation sites and actually becoming a contractor. What that did was it provided a service for the farmer, but didn't put me in a position to where I was taking the material in lieu of payment. I literally am just a service contractor. Based on the Michigan laws, farmers can have up to 72 plants, which is a pound a plant, but they could only carry to a processor to have their stuff extracted into oil, a pound at a time. So it's kind of a precarious gray marketplace. And so for me, my goal was to go out and to help farmers be able to take their waste and make it into oil. And so I set out across the country last year, picking up my equipment in California and really diving into the laws. The laws in Michigan were changing, the laws in California were changing. Now as it stands with the law, mobile extraction can be done as long as it's not done inside of a residence or inside of a vehicle. And so I'm still able to provide that service. Now, as I've been providing that service to the farmers, I found that they didn't know what to do with the oil. And so then I learned how to package things and continued on through my education. I started having some material that I took in lieu of payment to Iron Labs to have it be tested. Through that testing, what I found out was that what my machine was creating is raw cannabis oil in its most raw form. In other words, it's called THCA, which is a dominant form of the cannabis sativa L plant. Now, that raw form can be turned into THC. However, the interesting thing about the THCA is that it's not psychoactive, and it helps inhibit, well, studies show anyways, that it helps inhibit cancer. So what happened in my journey of this last year is I also sobered up, started going to AA. And when I got home, I was introduced, well, I knew somebody here, a local, who was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal brain and lung cancer. And so I approached him cautiously, just letting him know that I had access to this oil. Because every farmer that I had talked to has told me they've been giving people with cancer oil. But in my thought, I'm thinking, how do people with cancer know how to find a farmer? And it's precarious. It's kind of, it's just, it's not out there for the general public to see. So I gave this man oil, and the first one was THC, and it immediately started to help him. And then I had lab tests done, and I realized that I had THCA. So I gave him oil in the THCA form. Within 6 weeks, his blood counts changed dramatically, and his tumor shrunk from 10 centimeters down to 6. He is now off of chemo, hasn't had to do radiation, and continues to take the non-psychoactive form of THCA provided by me for free at morning and night, kind of as a preventative maintenance sort of thing. So where am I going with this? With the new law in Michigan, the part of that law is that you can gift it to anybody who's over the age of 21. For me, wanting to be a good steward in the community, I'm coming to introduce myself to you on behalf of a nonprofit that I'm forming called Free Relief organization. And what Free Relief is set out to do is to gift free raw cannabis tinctures to anybody over 21 who is diagnosed with cancer or a veteran diagnosed with PTSD. We'll have outreach events, going and speaking with the veterans and with various cancer groups, being able to provide these free tinctures to them. They don't have to pay us. We have, and that's the interesting thing in the dispensary world of how it was operating, and you couldn't take cash or whatever. People would go in and maybe get their free oil from a farmer or a dispensary, but have to pay. In our case, we're not asking for any money. I really believe that by giving people access to this tincture in just one form of delivery for these two segments, that people will support it, both privately and corporate sponsors. Within a week, I had a board built. I had a cannabis attorney who has been part of making the laws in the state. And we have also a gentleman who runs the Impact Weekend for Sobriety who has agreed to be on the board happily. Because when we look at cannabis, we often think about THC and getting high, but there's a lot of other benefits of what the plant offers, which kind of butts up to what President Trump just signed the Farm Bill on December 20th to take CBD, which is a cannabinoid from the cannabis sativa L plant, most often found in hemp, but also found in the cannabis plant. He has now rescheduled that, so it's no longer considered a controlled substance. So CBD has really been where my passion has been at throughout this whole part of kind of my jumping into this industry because of the non-psycho effects. And as you can see in Exhibit 1, there's a multitude of benefits that CBD itself provides. So looking at the ordinance for Central Lake and the medical marijuana program, what I would like to do is I would like to create a clinic where people can come a couple times a week, like starting out twice a week within a select amount of hours to be able to pick up their free bottle. They will need to prove that they're 21 and that they've been diagnosed with cancer or veteran with PTSD. And the location that I want to set this up at is the old party store across the street from the post office. So that contradicts with your current medical marijuana ordinance saying that you can't be within 500 feet of the school. And also that while you may be able to apply for a permit to be a grower or caregiver for people, that you can't actually have people come to your establishment in town, you have to deliver it. For me, and what I'm trying to set out to do, I'm not going to have people come to my house, and I don't really want to go to people's houses. I want to come into the community, be a responsible, transparent asset to the community, and bring people into Central Lake to visit and to be able to get access to this non-psychoactive form. I'm constantly learning. I'm sure there's a million things I don't know. Every day I'm learning more. Today specifically in speaking with the lab, I took down the initial sample, and when I started asking, okay, when I make my formulations this way, the actual formulation as it will be less than the 0.3% THC, which is the federal requirement that President Trump signed into play. So as long as CBD made from industrial hemp is below 0.3%, it's not considered a controlled substance. So not only am I formulating those tinctures to be below that 0.3%, I'm also going to maintain a maximum milligram amount of 500 milligrams. And the state now has a threshold of 2,000 milligrams per tincture bottle. So